Hey everybody! Are you so excited for today's topic? This is WOOculture Live. I'm Emma Smallbone. We're going to be talking today about past lives and what does that even mean? How do you bring that into your life? We're going to be talking to Ashley. So I'm just going to Skype her in. And as you come in, just say hello. Ask questions if you have questions right away. So I'm just going to try to, here we go. So let's go split screen. Oh, how do I shift click to go split screen? There we go. Yay.
Okay. And I am seeing you as an icon. I'm not seeing your live.
Okay. So as an icon in the actual,
in the window, like it's just your face.
Okay. Well, maybe pull up the Facebook piece and then you can see how awesome we look. Yeah. So, we've already got tons of people on here. Awesome. So we've got Melissa and Rod, and Patty and Monica and Gina. Yay. Awesome. Okay. So today we're going to be talking about past lives. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience with that piece, and then Ashley is here to answer all sorts of questions. I was going to introduce you, but I think you need to introduce yourself. So why don't you introduce yourself to WOOculture?
Okay. I'm still kind of like playing around because I can't find like the live. It's not showing up on Facebook for me, which is so weird.
Okay, you might just have to reload and reload. I sometimes do the same thing.
Yeah, okay, whatever. I'll just keep clicking refresh and we'll wait till it comes up. But so I kind of gave like a brief little introduction specifically about past lives underneath like the post where we were going to go live, but a little bit more broad. I'm an intuitive energy worker. It started with Reiki, and then it just kind of like expanded way beyond that. I noticed I was doing a lot of things that weren't kind of covered in the Reiki paradigm. Things were like happening differently for me than a lot of people experience. And so I still say I do Reiki, but I've almost kind of dropped that title because it feels just inconsequential anymore. But so yeah, I live in Virginia. I do all of my stuff distance right now. I'm doing like some local groups specifically, but I don't really do clients like in person. And I don't know, I'm a mom. I have twin boys, and that's like the briefest explanation ever about what I do and what my life is.
Tell us more.
It's like so beyond that. For me to go into what I really do is deep.
I know, and it's so amazing. Like I over my career, and even before I even got into any of this, I worked with so many different healers, and I found everybody first picks that Reiki label because I think it's so accessible. I think, people, I'm going to say they understand Reiki or they know what that is kind of supposed to mean, but nobody really, I think, understands it. And then as soon as you get into it and you start developing your own way of practicing, I think most people very quickly realize that that label does not really allow people to truly do their healing. So then you get stuck in that place of what do I even call myself? Because it's so much bigger than that. I have a friend here, Alex, locally, who does healing. And I told people like 5-6 years ago, you can't really call him a Reiki healer because it's not just, those hand placements. It's so far beyond that. So I totally understand your struggle of trying to define what it is that you do. But I can speak from experience because I've had quite a few sessions with you now. One that you've like done a scan and you've tuned into my past lives, and then we've had a healing session together. So, you know, from my experience, it truly is so much bigger and so much more expansive than just a healing session. You know, you see things that I, as an intuitive, can't see because it's not my skill. It's not my piece. And I know I have things in my past that have informed where I am today. And I know that I have things in my past that have, you know, I don't want to say made me stuck, but keep me in a loop, I think is probably the best way to describe that, where you just kind of keep living that pattern over and over and over again. And you're like, why can't I stop this? And you're able to see those pieces in a very different way. And I don't know, how would you say if you saw somebody in a loop, how are you able to shift that?
It's always a little bit different because, and the reason I started calling myself an energy archaeologist,
which I love.
Oh, you dropped out. I think I'm talking over you.
But are you talking over the Facebook one, or are you talking over the?
No, you're here now. Okay, no, it just kind of froze momentarily on my end. Sorry about that.
Okay.
So yeah, the reason I started calling myself an energy archaeologist was because I specifically, I see the bones of somebody, and I don't, it's very hard to kind of conceptualize, but it's like I kind of see how your current energy is looping in your energy system in your bones. Like I kind of see if they will be like really stretched out, you know, just kind of being pulled too thin in what that bone represents, or armored or anything like that. And so while I'm kind of looking at the bones and seeing what's going on inside, like energetically in those, I'll almost be like dropped down into something. So I'll start to kind of see where there's an ancestral connection, or I will see, like a past life. And usually when it's a past life, it's almost like my clairvoyant vision just drops out and I'm kind of shown a movie. So it's like they show up a little bit differently. But talking specifically about loops, the way that works is I call it zooming out, but it's like zooming way out. So I will see like you kind of in your current energy bubble, like your aura in the middle, and it's almost like a pincushion. Like I kind of see like a very small thread and then like another bubble up here, and like a small thread and another bubble. And some of them, like the bubbles will be bigger, or like they will, like I will see it as like a circular loop from that bubble like into you. And so then I just kind of start asking questions like, you know, which ones are ready to be released? Which ones do we need to integrate? Which ones do we need to actually do some healing on? And I kind of just start working on them at that level. And so a lot of times I will be shown one specifically, but there are like other ones going on that are kind of reinforcing that energy even.
That's so amazing. I find that so fascinating because it's very similar to how I tune in and see somebody's higher self. You can't really explain it because I'm not like physically seeing their higher self, but I see it as them sitting above themselves, and that higher self is a completely different person. That person is fully actualized. That person is fully in their power, and you're connected. You're just not in that full energy, right? So then it's like, how do we get to that space? Amazing. Yes. That's a great description. I think you did an amazing job. So why don't we, because I know, here's the thing about past lives, and probably I haven't looked at anybody's questions yet, so don't worry, I'm going to go back through the questions. Everybody has a different perspective on past lives, and I know my perspective on past lives is not the same as most people's. The way that I see it is it's in our DNA. So it's not like we necessarily lived that past life. It's a memory, or our grandmother's grandmother had that experience, and it feels like we lived it, and it becomes a part of us. And I know that's not the typical view of it, but because of the way that I read energy and because of the way that I see people's higher selves, it's the truth to me in the way that I feel and in the way that I work. So I do believe that we can all have different perspectives on the same subject and it all be truth. And I know people that are like, what? Yes. How does that make sense? No, it needs to be black or white. But we're dealing with energy. So, your energy can vibrate at a different level than my energy, and it can still be in the same space. So how do you describe past life to people?
I actually, this is where it gets a little bit tricky because usually when I talk to somebody, I will use past life as a term because that's something that has almost become accepted. Like that is something for us to easily conceptualize. We can be like, oh, great. Like there's a past, there's a present, there's a future. Like we understand that this may have happened in the past. I also like to usually put in parentheses if I'm emailing somebody that it is a multi-dimensional reality.
Yes.
Because essentially all time is happening simultaneously in different dimensions, and we are just not inhabiting like a physical 3-dimensional body in all of them. But, we are having these experiences. We are having ancestors that are having experiences. What you talked about it being in the DNA, totally what I experience also. It's in our DNA. It's in our Akasha. It is in our cellular memory. Like it's kind of everywhere. It's not something external to us.
Yeah.
But, so in my reality, in the way that I work with them, it is almost like different energies along the path, different situations along our life path to becoming that like fully actualized self that we need to integrate, heal, or release.
Yeah.
And it's something that, we've carried with us, or like a trauma that is kind of like re-coming up over and over and over again because we haven't dealt with it before. Yeah. And so until we do, like that's something that, like I was saying, is just going to loop.
Yeah.
And we're going to keep coming back around to it.
I have firsthand experience with this.
So do I.
I have like deep firsthand experience with the same thing showing up over and over and over again. And, I consider myself a fairly wise woman, and that I can look at those experiences and say, hey, that was not cool. And hey, I'm not going to let that happen again. And then, hey, it happens again. And then I'm going through that process again, and I'm trying to figure it out in my mind. And I'm trying to like take ego out of it, and I'm trying to heal it, and I'm trying to do all of these things. But I think ultimately there is a piece where we have to reach out to a healer for them to see it from a different perspective, because, there is so much great work being done with healing ourselves, but sometimes we just don't have that view. We don't have that perspective. We don't see all the angles. Because we're so attached to it, and it's so ingrained in us,
Yes.
And that's why we need people like you in the world.
Well, the way I explain it to people is that we can all do our own healing work. It just depends on, getting still, if like really practicing that connecting in, knowing what you know, seeing what you see, asking the questions, just getting really curious and non-judgmental about it. But what I've noticed most of the time that comes up whenever I'm working with somebody and we're working on kind of like some of these looping situations that have been just really deeply embedded is that it has become so traumatized in this lifetime that, like you're saying, you can't get a clear perspective on it. You can't kind of distance yourself and be non-judgmental. And, just kind of like, it's just energy. Whereas I can look at it and be like, oh, it's just a past life, And sometimes I'll even find myself shying away because the past lives I see are not pretty. They, like you can go to someone for a past life regression and they're going to be like, oh, you were, a queen in Egypt and you were this here. And like, that makes you feel great, right? Yeah. Like you're like, oh, amazing. I have all these healing powers that I'm coming in with. But it's the traumatizing ones that get stuck.
Yeah.
And so I'm seeing the traumatizing ones and I'm explaining to people like, oh, like, you were beheaded here, you were burned here, you've been drowned in a couple lives just through, like witch hunts and persecution. And so I kind of had to get around feeling weird about telling people that.
Yeah. But I think that point that you make that, I think in the late 80s, early 90s, past lives had this kind of resurgence. And I don't know if you remember this, but there were so many people going to shamans and so many people going and seeing healers, and everybody was Cleopatra. Everybody was white, like was a Native American in their past. Everybody, like, you were a king or a queen. And, I think about that and it just makes me giggle because that has not been my experience with past lives. Mine is very similar to you. Like the one past life that I really, I keep remembering a lot is I was like the scullery maid in, I'm sure it was a big house, but I don't think it was a castle. And I had a miserable life and I suffered. And, ultimately my death was not a pretty one. And I just think to myself, who are these healers that are always just seeing the Cleopatras and the, And hey, there is purpose in that. There is like, if you want to bring somebody joy, tell them they were Cleopatra or tell them they were Joan of Arc or whatever. But to me, that feels like such an easy out, like such an easy way to say, oh, you're good because you were Cleopatra and you don't have to do that. Like, but I think the real work comes when we're digging down deep into those places where we really don't, sometimes we don't want to go. And I think that's the other reason why healers are important. There's something in the back of my mind that says, Emma, there's something more here. Like, you need to work more on the shadow piece. And first of all, I don't necessarily always know how to get there. And third of all, I don't want to be the one to first see it. I want it to come through a filter.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And that's what I say I do a lot of times is I'm just almost like facilitating space holding.
Yes.
Because, you almost need like this person to kind of talk you through like, this is what happened and we're going to heal it and release it together. So you don't feel like you're being like drugged down into this kind of by yourself with like no safety net, because sometimes you don't know what you're going to see. And sometimes it feels really hard.
Yeah. Well, and definitely, I mean, we even do this with our own egos. Like the other thing too is if you go down there and you see something dark, you might just go, oh, I don't want to touch it. And then you push it away even further and make it even worse. And you're just like, I'm not dealing with it. And then it just rears its ugly head over and over and over again. But if you have somebody do that for you, they're just going to be like, oh no, this is the thing that we need to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. And I like to talk during my sessions. So I'd be like, oh, this is what I'm seeing and what we're going to release. Because, sometimes people will have that immediate reaction and their higher self will like step in to guide, and it's almost like a cooperative releasing or facilitation.
Yeah. So, and it feels much gentler to me. Like, I've seen some of my past lives and I get shocked. But if I have somebody else there to be like, oh, it's okay, we're just going to do this and we're going to, cut this cord and we're going to put it in this pretty spot and now we're going to pull some more energy in. It's not as hard.
Yes, completely. I go to other energy workers also.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm doing some of the deep stuff, because I'm like, I want someone to hold my hand to tell me like, this happened and we're dealing with it and it's going to be okay. And, we're going to move past it. And it's amazing because you just don't feel like you struggle with it on your own then. Or like you said, you don't have that inclination to push it down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm just going to look, there's so many questions, which is so awesome. And I love that everybody's sharing their past lives. So Sue says, I was a tall gray, an emissary of peace traveling to the pyramid builder tribes. I mean, that's awesome. If you can tap into that information, right? This is one of the other things that I've learned with past life is if we have those past lives, you're always connected to that. So if you feel say you were this,
because as soon as I saw that one come up and I read it, and immediately my brain goes, I mean, again, past life is a misnomer. I'm like, not a past life. That is an extraterrestrial life. That is another multi-dimensional thing.
Right.
Because there's this whole thing with the creation of the earth and the pyramids and, all of that with, extraterrestrial involvement, but that is getting
really
that is getting way out there.
Woo. We're all about the woo. How woo can we get today? Somebody asked, I was told a past life contract is coming due. Oh, what should I be doing to get through this, or how do I know when it has expired? Now, this to me is, I will speak to this because something that frustrates me about healers, there's no solution in that, right? So she's been told that a past life contract is coming due. So that person who tells you that needs to actually help you figure out.
Yes.
That's an open-ended piece. So Tracy, let's see. Do you have any answers, Ashley?
Oh my goodness, I don't. And the funny thing is I purposely was I'm not going to really open up space and connect because I knew there was going to be a lot of comments coming through. But as far as someone saying it's coming due, that's so interesting because for me, I would most likely see that as one that is just like I was talking about the little bubbles, the pins, right? It would probably just be almost getting bigger, it's getting more important and more urgent and it's drawing your attention there.
Yeah.
But it's not like it's going to erupt and all of a sudden we're going to have mass chaos in your life or something. It's just something that's really drawing your attention currently.
Exactly.
And it needs to be healed at least.
I think too, the piece about that is it's going to show up in some way, shape, or form. It's not it's just going to bam, oh my God, my past life contract is due. You're going to start to feel that there's themes showing up for you, and you're going to start to feel that maybe I need to work on this piece. I've been doing tons of work on my ego and learning how to not let it get in the way, and not always, what's the right word? Actually completely remove my ego from anything that I do. And the more that I do that piece, the more I'm able to facilitate for people and the more that I'm able to hold space, because it's no longer about, this human piece. It's about connecting. And I have a feeling that Tracy, if your past life is coming due, you've probably already felt the rumbles. Right? So you've probably already started to feel those pieces. And the contract piece, I don't know much about that. So I've heard, for anybody that's listening, that when you come into this life, you've essentially signed a contract to do something. Is that your understanding, Ashley?
And I'm like you, that's not my particular area of expertise. Yeah. And actually, Elizabeth Dobson was just commenting that she was wondering if people were able to see them more clearly because she's always been in touch with them. So that's interesting. If she wants to keep commenting, we can maybe read that. So I know that we come in with specific soul contracts for things that we have signed up to do in this lifetime.
Yep.
I have no idea what mine are. I'm always kind of surprised, when something comes up, I'm like, oh, hey, that must have been a soul contract, because that was not something I consciously ever thought I would get into.
Yep.
But I'm not, I don't specifically read them.
Yeah. Oh, she says my contract was to obey, so I hope it's almost over. Well, here's my thing about energy. Don't put hope it's almost over. It's over. Like, you have to believe it's done and it will be done. Like, that you have to start, thinking that way. Ever since Ashley and I did our last session together, that open loop, it's so funny. All the cards I have pulled have said, and I wish I had that deck with me. I think I do in my bag. About that cycles are ending. Like, I've pulled so many cards in the last couple of weeks that said a cycle is closing, a loop is ending. It's clear to me. And then it's almost like it's become my mantra. Like, this is done. It's over. Like, I'm not even open to allowing that to show up in my life anymore. So I think it is a lot of mindset stuff too. Like, you can have a healer work on you, but that's funky. Okay, we're back on. Awesome. Thanks for sticking with us. Bright sunny day here in Canada, and we freeze.
Yeah, you know what? It's same here. That's funny. It's the energy.
I know, we're pushing all this energy about, right? Somebody said, my sister and I have a strong connection. We are so close. We've already both felt like another life. We were best friends and now get to be sisters biologically. I hear that one a lot. Like, I hear the whole piece of, our friendship is so connected. We had to have known each other. One of my very first friends in the woo world, when I first moved here, we used to call each other sisters. And it's funny because actually I think we were nuns together. So there was like that sister connection.
Yeah.
Which, can you imagine me as a nun? I don't know how that. But yeah. What's your experience with that piece?
I firmly believe that piece. I feel like we continue to draw in people, and it can often be the same people who we continue to kind of grow with and expand with and learn the life lessons with.
Yeah.
I have a friend that I was like, we've actually never met in real life. We so super randomly were matched up together in this online course that we were taking. And so we both have this feeling that we were actually like sisters, kind of in another dimension. And it's so funny to see like how close we've become with never meeting and, all of that stuff.
Yeah. But, so now, because I know there's some non-wooey people in WOOculture, which I think is awesome. So I just want to go into a little bit of a chatter about the dimension piece. Because I think for some people that is like so hard to, conceptualize. But me and my husband were talking the other day, and I think it really hit home for him when I put it this way, that, there was a table of people, a couple tables over from us. And you could tell that they were really sporty. They were really like, I think they were watching the baseball game or something, and they were talking about, going to practice and doing all of these things. And I said to Bill, I said, we're sitting right here at this moment. Their reality is not our reality. We don't go to sports games. I don't even know who's playing or what season it is. Their reality is totally separate from ours. They're living in a different dimension here, right now. And I feel like take that and shatter that by 1,000,000. Like, you know what I mean? Like, split it up, and like there's dimensions where people only talk science and they're only into like that, solving all the world's problems. That's a complete, and our woo dimension, which I just think is the best dimension, where we're constantly working on raising our vibration and, helping people in the world and serving other people in that way. We're totally living in that. But then outside of that is like this energetic. So as a medium and somebody that speaks to spirit, I know that there is a different dimension where spirit is. They're here. They just vibrate much higher, because when I connect with them, I can hear them, I can see them. They are plain as day in my energetic space. Just nobody else sees that. or nobody else
Yes.
hears it the way that I do. And, it's hard when I first started having this conversation, but now that I've kind of started to tune in a little bit more, and especially with this new earth talk that's been happening a lot and the energy starts raising, there are people here that are living, I think I'm in the fifth. Somebody yesterday told me I'm in like seventh and eighth dimension. I'm like, hey, I didn't even know those existed, but whatever. But, because I see things differently, I manifest things differently. If I say, hey, I want a networking group that's totally my vibe, out of the blue, a couple of weeks ago, somebody messaged me and said, hey, do you want to become a part of this networking group? And I went today, and they're friggin' awesome. And they're all super high vibey. And I was just like, wow, that was just a thought in my head. And then it happens. But that's a different level of energy. So how do you see that piece?
Oh my goodness. So I just know that's where the claircognizance comes in for me. Like I can see people's like other like live like other energetic multidimensional bubbles that are attached to them. But that's where I just know, like I have beings that I will call upon, or kind of other spirits that will step in, and like I know that this is like 12th dimensional, and I've had people say like unicorn energy is 12th dimensional, things like that, and it's like it's just this piece that is, like you said, it's very hard to conceptualize and to describe. And I think we get stuck a lot right now because the whole conversation has been moving from 3D to 5D.
Yeah.
Like from 3D consciousness to 5D consciousness. And so I feel like that has been where, like, as humans, we're kind of getting stuck. This idea of, like, okay, well, if I'm not living in 3D and this, like, life of duality and all of that, and then moving into 5D where things manifest and there's ease and it's, like complete law of attraction and there's no good or bad or, that kind of stuff, like unity consciousness.
Yeah.
There are a lot about that, and I think it's funny that we also ignore.
Oh, there we go. We were just saying that froze, but we were saying that was the universe saying you're not allowed to know about 4D conversations. So what were you looked into this?
Yes, and I looked into this, and what resonated with me, there was a lot to read about, but what I felt really strongly and what I've experienced with other people is 4D is kind of where that like false light occurs. That idea of like, almost like where we get into cults. Yeah. Like where you've got like the guru mentality and you're kind of following, but it's not always in the best interest of everybody, and it's a little tricky and it's kind of shadowy, and that's where all of that 4D stuff kind of sits.
Right.
And so, the point is like, I don't think anybody really wants to exist there. So we're going to 5D.
It's so funny because as you say that, I'm like, I totally know when we skipped that. It was November and December. I feel like there was like a shedding of people that were false prophets. I've been talking about this a lot, where people were like, ooh, this new age spirituality shit is really cool. I'm going to become a part of it, and I'm going to have people follow me, and I'm going to become a millionaire by preaching to people. Mm-hmm. And there was a huge amount of them came online. Then November and December, there was this massive die-off. There was a huge amount of people that just disappeared from the woo community. And I think that's when we skipped over 4D. I really I think that's when it happened.
That's amazing.
I know, right? I just sat back and was like, I'm not having that conversation. I'm just going to sit over here and do my own thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, so, my goodness. Okay. Are there any questions we missed while we were having that conversation?
Like, what do they want? People are talking about their past lives, which is awesome.
Oh, awesome.
Do you guys have any specific... Somebody said if they were a healer in their past life, how do they reactivate that in this lifetime? Because they feel like they're struggling with it. So... how can you kind of, go into that. And like I was saying, bring that energy into this lifetime.
Okay. Couple things came up right off of that. The first thing is that little quote that if it's meant for you, it will not miss you.
Perfect.
It will come.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that, like, just trusting, like, it is in your dimensional realities. It is there because, like, you were meant to integrate that in this lifetime. If you're feeling blocked around it, what specifically I was feeling actually come in right there was that there is a block around it, and it's because there's something that needs to be healed, integrated, released first.
Right.
And so, a lot of times I feel like whenever we work through like the blocks and the shadow work first before we immediately want to dive into that, like I was a healer, I'll just use my own past lives, for example, like a sound healer in Egypt and, a couple other different things. And I've been a witch a couple times over, without doing the shadow work that accompanies those past lives. You're going to get a lot of blocks around them, and it's going to feel a whole lot more difficult than it needs to. Because traditionally in our, culture that we are in right now, and especially with the ancestral connection, being a healer has not been love and light, like, until now.
No, exactly. I think that's why because I know I'm a healer. Like, I know I heal in my sessions. I know that I've healed in past lives. I know I've been a witch and a midwife and like all of those things. But there is something, and I keep saying to everybody, I'm like, so when's it coming? Like, Spirit has told me to put my healing bed in my office. They're like, it's coming. Like, because I have a Reiki table at home. And I said, okay, but like, how is this going to like play out and what? I don't know. And I'm not feeling the flow in that area that I do in everything else. So my choice how to work with that is I'll put the bed here and we'll see what happens. Like, maybe somebody sees the bed and says, oh, hey, can you heal me? And then I'll do a healing session and then it'll flow and everything will work. But, if I don't put the bed here because Spirit told me, then I'm blocking myself, right? I'm preventing myself from listening to my intuition and not doing the thing that I'm supposed to be doing.
Yes, follow the intuition. I always say, if you do not follow your intuition on the little things, your intuition is not going to trust you with the big things.
Exactly. And you hit the nail on the head, because intuition is a sentient thing. Like, it listens to you, it hears you, it interacts with you every single day, and it gets pissed off. If you don't listen,
it will disappear.
It will disappear. It will go away. So if you don't listen to those little pieces that say, put your healing table in your office, one day it will just stop talking to me. So actually, I'm going to bring my healing table to the office tomorrow because I need to.
Perfect. Like we were just talking about before this, I signed up for Kundalini class. I have paid the money. Usually that will get me there. Intuition is saying, do not go. I'm not going to go.
Well, and here's the thing. Me and my mom, I know we've had past lives together because we have done so much healing work with each other and for each other. And her and I always have this thing of like, oh, I don't think we should go today. And she looks at me and she goes, yeah, I don't think we should go either. And we know that if we had gone, there'd be a car accident or like, we'd have to come home, or we always have listened to that, and I don't know why that's such an easy conversation for us, but we don't even question it. We just don't even even if we had big plans to go somewhere and we go, I'm being told I shouldn't do it. We just go, okay, we're not doing it today. That's okay.
Yeah. And life gets kind of cool whenever you start doing that. Because sometimes, like, you're not going to go and you stay home and something, like, amazing happens at home. Or, like you said, you avoid a car wreck. Or, like, you just kind of start seeing these things, which is amazing. So there's a comment on here, Patty Brooks is saying, I used to have a recurring dream of getting shot. So real, I swear it knows how to feel getting shot. Dream stopped when I was in my late 20s. Does it mean I was maybe shot and killed in a previous life in my late 20s? So Patty, the immediate hit that's coming in is that is an ancestral connection for you, not necessarily a past life connection. And so somewhere in your ancestral line, there is this like trauma memory of getting shot in your 20s. And sometimes like we will see ourselves in that situation because it's carried so firmly in our energy. Sometimes we'll see it as somebody else. But what I'm curious about is, often after that happens, like if the dream stopped whenever they were in your late 20s, if you paid any attention to like what came in afterwards, like do you all of a sudden have like, was it like a releasing of an energy, or do you feel like you're carrying a trauma now? Because like in my experience, unless you're like really distinctly paying attention to it and like doing the work around it in your consciousness, a past life is not going to like, or an ancestral wound isn't going to resolve on its own. So I'm really curious to see if you've done anything additional around that. But yeah, that one really particularly stuck out to me because of how I got started in working with past lives. Because it was completely unconscious. I was doing it in my dreams.
Yes! Oh my gosh.
I had not stepped into it as like, this is part of my purpose in my lifetime. And so I was spending time with people, like in my everyday life, in my waking life. And I would have a dream that night and it would be like completely fast forward, all of these things, all of these people that I knew, like I would see I would see them in these situations. And again, it was like not great situations. And it was like, they were all just releasing one after another, after another, after another. And, I would get people saying, you were in my dream last night and I woke up feeling great this morning and, I was doing this. And, I woke up feeling terrible because I had been doing energy work, like unconsciously all night, while my body was like in my bed. My spirit was off doing other things. And it was things like that I would see, people getting shot. And it was like, I would be going and like resolving that for them at night. So I was just thinking about that in relationship to Patty's comment.
That's so funny.
I wonder if someone like stepped in and resolved that.
Yeah, that's happened to me the last 2 weeks. I've had people message me, some of them were on WOOculture, and say like, you were in my dreams last night and this is what you said to me. And somebody else from Ireland messaged me and said, hey, you were in my dreams last night. And I was like, oh, I hope they were good. And then I made the conscious decision, because I've heard very many, like a lot of stories like yours. I made the conscious decision to say to spirit, hey, can I stay in my body for the next 2 nights? Because I am feeling a little bit run down and I don't really feel like I want to be healing that way right now. And then I had 2 nights of really great sleep. So, I really do think that when that starts to come alive, and that kind of goes along with them telling me, hey, put your healing table in the office, that it's going to happen no matter what. Like that kind of goes back to that woman that asked, hey, if I'm a healer in my past life, how can I reactivate it? It's going to happen when it needs to happen. And that's been my whole thing about intuition in general. If you're trying to force something, it's not going to come up the way that it needs to come up. I think sometimes we try to make it happen. Like with mediumship, so many people are like, and I understand it, they're so excited for that to show up for them and they want to try really hard. But sometimes we're just not ready. Sometimes, like you said, we need to heal some pieces first, because I know for me, when my mediumship really started to take off was after my dad passed away. And I had to have that experience with my dad and him crossing over and me being there for him, and then him showing up like 5 minutes after he passed away. I had to have that experience for me to truly open up and then truly understand how to talk to people that have crossed over. Or not crossed over, but that are dealing with death, because then I finally had dealt with it myself.
There we go.
So, you know, sometimes there's just one thing that's out of alignment that we need to happen so we can fully actualize all of that stuff that's within us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Very cool. So I'm just going to look to see. Yeah, we're pausing, people. So witches are not all bad. I love that comment. There's no bad witches, people.
No.
No. Oh, no. It was funny. I was at my shop on Sunday. It was open for the first time this summer. And there was a like 15, 16-year-old kid with her mom, and she was laughing, and she's like, yeah, we were driving up the driveway, because I have this windy wooden, like wooded driveway, so you're kind of like, where am I going? And he was totally freaking out, like, Mom, where are you taking me? And she said, we're going to a witch's house. I was just like, yes, I love it. I said, but I'm the good kind.
That's so funny. It's amazing. I worked with a man for a while who had a daughter. I think she was like 5 whenever we worked together. And he said she would walk around town and be like, Daddy, that one's a good witch. That one's a bad witch. And she would identify people like that.
I love it. I love it. Oh, people are asking for links, so we'll definitely be posting Ashley's links afterwards. Awesome.
Yes.
Oh, and then I think you answered, can you see the soul contracts clearly?
I can't. Some people can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And it's funny, the whole Akashic Records thing. So for people that don't understand or don't know about Akashic Records, there is a book of your records of all your past lives, everything that you're doing now, everything that you're going to be doing in the future, and you can access that. And it's funny because Spirit has always shown me, and I used to say that it was like a roadmap, and that when your loved ones cross over, they can see how they affected your life, and they usually go, oh, fuck. And then they look at your future, and then they say, oh, I can help them here. Oh, I can help them here. And that's how Spirit interacts with us. But what I realized like a year and a half, 2 years ago, that's your Akashic record. Like when they're showing me that piece, that's the Akashic record. They just showed it to me as a roadmap. And so we all have that. And some people can see it plain as day. They can tune into that piece and like play with all their pages, and they can go to their past and go to their future and do it. I cannot. Like I have never been able to connect with that piece. And I think I even did a meditation on a new moon not too long ago where we went into our Akashic records. And some people even in that meditation said, no, my keeper of my records said, you're not allowed to see this. And I truly do think that there are some people, you just shouldn't see it. You don't need to know what's coming.
That's funny. I'm always shown it as filing cabinets.
Oh, nice.
Must give you an idea of how my brain works.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny that they showed me a roadmap because I'm one of those people that can look at a map once and then just know where I'm going. Like I don't have to have a GPS and I don't have to have the map all the time. It's like I photograph the map in my head and then I just go. So I think it really is custom to us. There's no right way or wrong way to see any of this stuff.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yes. That is a whole pet peeve tangent of mine that I won't drag you on right now.
No, totally do it. Totally do it.
Okay, so I hold like a little, not animosity, but just like a little bit of frustration with a lot of the books that have been written that have told people what things look like.
Yes.
Or because they become almost like this gospel a bit, especially with people who are trying to become healers, like people who start like following, you know, like Barbara Brennan's like Hands of Light and stuff like that, because she explains how she sees energy.
Yes.
And so I feel like when you're trying to become a healer, you're trying to understand your intuition or start working with things, like you kind of internalize that and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not seeing it the way she's seeing it. So it must be wrong, you know? And that's why it took me so long, because I was like, I'm seeing bones. Nobody else is seeing bones. This makes no sense to me. I don't get why I'm seeing these things. So yeah, that is just, it's so true. Like, we see what we need to see for the specific way we are meant to heal, I think, in this lifetime.
Well, and that's, as a medium, like teaching intuition, I teach a very broad, like, even when I did my 21 days of ritual without rules, it was very much like, here's all the pieces, choose which one works for you. Because, you know, so many people say to me, I think I'm a medium, but I don't hear or see. And I'm like, you don't need to hear or see. Do you have a sense of knowing? Do you know, are you getting symbols in your head? You don't actually physically need to see spirit to be a medium, right? You don't, and to be a healer, you don't have to place your hands on the chakra points. That isn't the truth. Like, that's the piece. I totally agree with you. Somebody's version of something is not the truth. Right? My way that I see mediumship and the way that I connect with energy is not the truth. It's my version of the truth. And the more that we can see that, the easier it is for us to access all those things.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny because I know that I am a medium. I don't call myself one because I know as soon as I do, and I open that door, that it's going to get a whole lot bigger, and that's not somewhere I'm willing to go right now. But whenever I'm working with someone and we're working on, like, the ancestral piece, you know, like, I will open up the healing space and invite in, like, the well ancestors that want to heal this piece also and kind of heal through the lineage. And, you know, we all do it together. And that is technically mediumship. It's completely different than how other people do, you know, medium readings. But I have, you know, very specific encounters with, you know, my grandfather and my grandmother who have passed on. And it's funny because I smell them.
I smell my grandmother. I totally smell my grandmother. Yeah.
I'll be sitting somewhere and I'm like, oh, it smells like Grandpa, you know, and like, I know that he's there. And if I want to, like, tune in and just ask what the message is, I can do that, you know.
Well, and that's the other piece too. I think I changed my term to seer because I didn't want people to think of me as a medium anymore, because I was feeling like my gifts were becoming so much broader. There was so much more to it, that it wasn't just about connecting people with their loved ones. And that word can be very detrimental to your practice or to your career, because, you know, people come and they're like, well, this is what I want. But now when I say that I'm a seer, I see the past, I see the future, I see the present, I see your higher self. It's so much easier for people to understand, and then I'm not kind of limited to this one way of giving messages. So I totally hear you on that piece. I am, but it's not what I'm all about. It's not the only piece of me. And it's okay if you are, like, if that's what you want to do. But, you know.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Like, you know, I know people that are like, I'm a medium and that is what I do and I will never change. Like, that's what I enjoy, and I totally get it. But yeah, it's a hard word, because you do, like, if you say you're a medium, then your career is going a certain way.
Yes, and oh my gosh, I believe in the power of words so strongly. I feel like as soon as you claim a word, like, even if it is not true for you now, like, Spirit will find a way to make it true for you.
Oh, exactly. Well, it's like woo, right? It's like this little word that used to be so derogatory in my life because, you know, oh, I don't believe in your woo-woo shit. Like, that was really where it came from. And then I was just like, who the fuck are you to tell me that you don't believe in my shit? I'm claiming woo. It is like, it's all that I am about. And now and I don't claim that I made this happen, but I think I've helped the word woo become normalized and become something that is, you know, something that other people want and that they don't push away. You know, I think we do have to be very kind of conscious of the words that we do choose.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
What? Somebody says,
Okay.
although
I wasn't sure if I lost you.
Oh,
there.
no, I froze, like, no, not frozen.
Perfect.
It says, although I do not want to explore my medium gifts, I would like to know about my ET connection. What's ET? Do you know? Actually,
Extraterrestrial.
Okay. And how I can use it in this life for the greater good. So just in your own life in general.
I love having ET conversations with people. I swear, people come to me and they're like, this is going to sound weird. I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah.
I talk about all sorts of weird things with people. So there are people that have an ET connection because of having been, you know, extraterrestrial in other lives and other dimensions and whatever. And then there are also starseeds, which are people who are here from other planets, basically. So there is like all sorts of stuff to that. You can take quizzes online. They're like, which starseed are you from? You know, that kind of thing. I have figured out mine. A lot of times when I'm working with a client and I'm working in the Earth Star chakra, I will. It's like there's a very specific earth frequency that people want to ground into, but I've also noticed that there are other, I see them almost like plugs, like other energies that want to connect in at the earth star. And a lot of times if someone is a star seed and they've been disconnected from it, or if they have like a really specific connection to like an ET group, that energy will kind of like plug in at the earth star chakra. And then it's kind of like this infusion of that vibration and of that frequency, and you can kind of start grounding into it and calling on this energy. A lot of times people that have that, like you're saying, the ET emissary of peace. So I've worked with people who have had like a plug into a couple different extraterrestrial groups or energies or beings, however you want to put it, because they were almost like a communicator, a translator, an emissary. And so a lot of times, like that also continues to be your work in this lifetime, just as a human. But you kind of have that as support.
So like somebody that was an emissary of peace in an extraterrestrial life might be a peacemaker here in a way that they're like a psychologist or, you know, a lawyer even is totally a peacemaker, right? Like,
yeah. Definitely. I mean, or even ways that, like mediators, or actually what's coming to my mind actually is like activists, you know, people who are ushering in peace through like a different sort of means. But yeah, it's all there for you. It's just connecting to it.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is too, I find a lot of times when people talk about past life stuff, they think that has to define them. So like say I was a priestess, or I was I've talked about being a nun, you know, because I've always had this really bizarre connection to religion in general. Like I'm just fascinated by the whole thing. And I for a very long time called myself an atheist when I was younger because I didn't want to choose one. So I just chose not to choose one at all, if that makes sense. And, you know, that whole time I knew that I had been a nun, but then it wasn't like I went, well, I was a nun, so I should become one again, or I should be a Christian, or I should be this. I just allowed it to educate that I'm a spiritual person, right? So
yes.
Or
you're really hitting on something important there, because if we're going to let the good ones define us, or the ones that we want to like pick and choose, then are we also going to let these like, you know, bad ones define us, quote unquote, negative ones define us? And I don't think any of them are there to define us. They're just there, like you said, to inform. That, you know, I have this wounding that I need to look at. I have this trauma that I need to look at. Like, this is being held in my DNA. This is being held in my records. And I'm using like past lives, multidimensional lives, records, DNA interchangeably because they are.
Yeah.
It's all there in like everything. It's like suffused throughout your being. But yeah, you know, do you, like, it's all just there for your growth. It's there for your betterment. It's there to, quote unquote, fulfill your soul contracts. It's just there to become like the best actualized human being you can be in this lifetime.
Yeah. I absolutely adored this conversation. I think we'll probably have to do it again because I have a feeling there's going to be so many questions about
this.
Yes,
I know. And I feel like I'm going to go through these probably afterwards and maybe even do some replying if people are open to, because I know we just kind of skipped over a lot of them.
I know. But I don't want to go too long. But maybe if there's tons of questions or there's one theme that we think is coming up again, we can totally do this again. I'm so excited to continue this conversation in WOOculture. If you're watching live, thank you for being here and asking your questions. If you're watching on the replay, feel free to ask questions because we can come in and answer those in the feed below. And if you're watching this on YouTube, because that's where it's going, Ashley's like, what? Join WOOculture. We're on Facebook. We're a group of an amazing, like-minded people that talk about everything woo. We want to connect with you and we want to share our knowledge with you. So thank you so much for joining us today. Have a wonderful day. And thanks again, Ashley, so much for doing this. It's been awesome.
You're welcome. It's been a really fun conversation. Thank you.
You're so very welcome. And we will post all of Ashley's information below so you can go on her website and check her out and even partake in her healing, which is fucking magical. So just a little 5-star review there. Have a great day, everybody.